people in reward, people in HR don't understand benefits. So you give them a platform, they have no idea what to do with it.
And I guess we're sitting here in the UK, right? And there's a lot of news talking about like the budget.
I mean, again, I think everyone in this industry would say it's a daft move, but bigger picture.
I guess as ever, it's a lot of it is short term as opposed to.
Hey everyone, welcome to the Friends with Benefits podcast, the essential podcast for rewards and benefits leaders. I'm Carl, VP of Benefit Design and Partnerships here at Ben, and joined by my co-host as usual.
I'm David, one of the founders here at Ben. And today we're really excited to have Tony in the hot seat to have a bit of a conversation around all things benefits. Maybe we go into it, right? Maybe a quick introduction to yourself, Tony. So you've been around the industry for a while, not pointing to the gray hairs or anything, but maybe we just start with a quick introduction to yourself, if that's okay.
Yeah, I'm currently the VP of Reward for Aristocrat, but I've been in the industry 43 years. Started very young, done most roles in this industry, so I understand every aspect of benefits and REM, from providers to advisors to consultants to practitioner.
Any role that you liked the most?
I enjoyed running my own company for a while.
Which was focused on what, Tony?
So it was called Serenity. Yeah. Being a sci-fi fan, I named it after a sci-fi show.
Yeah.
Oh, you hit the spot there with Carl.
And I was a consultant to the likes of Heinz, The Telegraph, Bernard Matthews, because of my experience with Thomsons. I had a unique knowledge of that industry and flexible benefits. So I love doing that. Maybe
we start with that, actually. Would love to learn a little bit more. Obviously, you were in the early doors with Thomsons, which then became Darwin and was acquired by Mercer. Kind of, I guess like the first, generation of employee benefits technology, right? Like, what was that like? Interesting. I went for a job as an IFA because I'd had enough of being a pension consultant. Thought I was a bit young to be a pension consultant. And it turned out to be something very different. Met with Michael and Chris in a flat in Victoria. There was only him and Chris and two other people there at the time. Funny story, as I crossed the road, a downpour came and I got absolutely drenched to the skin. I was wearing a green suit for some strange reason. And they both kept coming out and looking at me and thinking it was very amusing. But I got the job, so that was the most important thing. I applied my knowledge of ProFund, which was the benefit sort of pension platform, if you like, and applied that to the job I was looking at. At the time, they were looking at just online pensions. They weren't looking at anything else. That was the main thing.
That was the main thing. Pensions, how online it was, I won't comment on, but it was online. And we basically were looking at that. And then Chris went away to America, came back and said, you know what, we should do flexible benefits. And that's how we started. So we had an intake of very young people from universities. Having not gone to one, I didn't see the benefit. Having met them, I did. And they are now quite important people in the industry. So we talk about the Tim Perkins, Matthew Gregson, Jeremy Beaumont, those sort of people. And they've all done very well. But they were fantastic individuals. I trained them to sell. I trained them how to go to market. And we were almost first to market, I think. Not quite, but almost. We used to do loads of events, EB Live. I went on the cruise ships. Ever been on one of those where they go to Jersey?
Type of
HR forum. Yeah. They were interesting. So 30 meetings a day, including breakfast, lunch, and dinner with 7 people.
Captive audience.
Absolutely. Very exhausting.
You can't go anywhere.
Can't go anywhere. So we had them. So we did very well out of that, and we did very well out of all the different things. But an amazing marketing person. She really was the person, I think, that changed the way the business was. Got us out there really well. But I think, for me, it was an amazing experience to work with all these different well-known names. So one of my first clients was Avon Cosmetics. They were doing spreadsheets with Watsons, and we put them online. I worked with Chanel, Croydon Logistics in the UK. Not quite so fancy to say that, but they were very good as well. And as I say, I moved on from there to run my own business, but that was the first insight into benefit platforms and I suppose the EVPs that we call them today, and the proposition.
The thing is that they actually delivered on it, right? Like, again, has the market actually moved? Obviously, you've done a number of different sort of reward benefits roles, right? Like, and the thing that is still surprising to me is, like, at the end of the day, like, the problem hasn't been solved yet, despite a lot of people trying. I guess the question is, why not?
Well, we started well. I think we started with the consultancy piece, which was to advise clients and help clients to brand their benefits and manage them and engage their employees with them. And then we got into this idea of a SaaS model. And we had to keep selling and selling and selling and find a way to do that and repeat and repeat. I think the Model T Ford was the example we were using. And we lost that consultancy side. So going from doing feasibility studies to design documents, we went just straight into the technology. I think that's where the market generally went. And that's why I think it loses something because, as I said to you when I met you, people in reward, people in HR don't understand benefits. So you give them a platform, they have no idea what to do with it.
Yeah.
And it generally doesn't really work very well for them. And they need advice, they need some support. So that's, I think, where it's failing. Because the systems these days do their job. If they didn't, they wouldn't be selling them. Then, not all of them did, but now they just do what they're required to do. But without anything on top of that, you're not really adding anything.
I guess maybe before we get into a lot of the topic areas, we like to start the segment with a bit of what's in the news recently. And I guess we're sitting here in the UK, right? And there's a lot of news talking about like the budget and what's happening there. And a lot of speculation that, salary sacrifice might be cut with obviously pensions being the biggest thing, but potentially other benefits as well. It's not the first time, I guess, the conversation starts, but yeah, any kind of thoughts? Do you think it's going to happen? What's the impact going to be?
To do optional remuneration. I can't say that very easily because I have a little lisp. But that happened. I was quite surprised because for many, many years, the tax office were told it was employment law, nothing to do with them. They couldn't change it. And then some bright spark found a way of overlaying the law and putting in optional remuneration. So, yeah, I think they will. I think it's an easy win. They push it down the line a bit. They don't have to worry about it for the next term because somebody else's problem.
Yeah.
I think it's a poor thing to do. We just hit employers with NI. They're now going to lose NI as well.
That's the thing,
it's
right?
a big cost for them.
Yeah. What's the impact going to be? I mean, Carl, you're talking to people day in, day out about this stuff.
Yeah, I mean, the impact's potentially huge, isn't it? It's just another thing that companies have to consider in terms of the continuation of providing the cost for these services. And they're already operating under squeezed, a squeezed environment. Yeah, it's interesting. It'll be, I mean, again, I think everyone in this industry would say it's a daft move, but bigger picture, the government needs to save money, right? So, or accumulate money, more to the point. So it's probably an easy win for them that doesn't get a lot of noise, probably, outside of our industry or outside of, and potentially outside. I mean, within companies there'll be a bit of noise, but I can't imagine it. Yeah, I can understand why they're doing it. I think it's daft, but I understand why they're doing it.
But it hits the lower earners because they're the ones who pay the most national insurance.
Yeah,
and
that's
the
true.
employer obviously is fixed what they lose. But it's, again, like everything that they seem to do, it has the opposite effect, perhaps, of what they're trying to achieve.
Yeah.
I guess as ever, it's a lot of it is short term as opposed to thinking long term, right? I mean, in the last sort of episode, we were talking about potentially lowering the tax for things like private medical insurance, right? And that having the impact on the NHS and similar to retirement programs, like it's the same.
I mean, there's
sort of
conversations
effect,
as well around extending salary sacrifice into things like solar panels and air source and ground source heat pumps, areas of more sustainability. But yeah, I don't know. It seems like they're going in the wrong direction with this.
But they're going to tax cars, aren't they? Electric cars.
Yeah. Well, that's all.
I mean, that seems a bizarre thing to do.
The advantages around that are diminishing.
Yeah, everything, right? Like coming for it. The question is, again, are they thinking long term, and what's the impact of employers, and how should they think about it? I guess, like moving on, would love to talk a little bit about one of the things that a lot of folks struggle with, which is a bit related, right? How do we make the case for investment into benefits? I mean, very topical, especially if some of these tax exemptions, at least in the UK, might be going away. So maybe any war stories around, okay, what resonates, especially, I think when we were discussing offline, that a lot of times total rewards folks who may need to make decisions don't actually understand benefits. So,
Indeed.
Yeah, any, I guess, advice to the audience?
Going back to what I was saying with Thomsons, when I first worked there, the first time I'd ever heard the word engagement in this context. And I think that still applies today. If you don't engage people, you don't succeed as a business. And it's proven through many data sources, many ways of demonstrating it. Most people don't use that information to support their case. If you do, and even if you take a small percentage of change, so you look at a Gallup survey saying that you're going to save 78% in absence by engaging people. If you say to your CFO, I can save 10%, you're not jumping, too far ahead, and they'll go, okay, well, if you can do that, then I'm interested, and it's the same with people who leave or people who go off sick. It's easy to demonstrate that now. When I started doing this 25 years ago, we had no data sources. I think CAS was the only place that was showing us anything, and it was one of the first Gallup surveys. So, yeah, I think engagement is really, really important.
And I guess, one of the things that we find people struggle with is exactly that argument that the most important stuff is usually the things that are more, not fluffy, but harder to draw the exact correlation, right? Like when we're talking to a CFO or somebody in finance who needs to sign off on the budget, a lot of the conversation can be around, okay, how can we reduce the administration cost, or how can we make the benefit spend go
stuff
down,
you write
right?
a check for rather than...
exactly, the direct costs, right? Whereas actually the big benefit can be the indirect stuff, but it's really hard to make the argument. So how have you seen?
So intangibles are difficult. I mean, intangibles you can persuade a CPO. A CFO is not going to really listen to those unless you can demonstrate categorically the differences it made to existing businesses. This is why these surveys are really important. So yeah, I mean, I say looking at the Gallup stuff, it's very clear what happens when you engage people. It's going to affect productivity. It's going to affect absence. They know the cost of that. Yeah. If they don't, you can demonstrate it, because that's often not what they do.
I mean, a lot of times they don't know the cost.
No, they don't. No. So that's again. So I put that in a return on investment, document for them to show them the cost as well as the savings they're going to make. And to your point about benefits, most businesses I've worked for as a practitioner just say, well, benefits will go up this year by 10%, won't they? And as a cost to us, they're 20%, aren't they? They don't have figures for what they are. So actually, if you start talking about savings with them, you're going to have to start by telling what it costs. And they don't really understand that.
It's remarkable. The number of people, it was like, okay, how much are you spending on benefits? It was like, oh, we don't really know.
Indeed.
Wow. Yeah.
Which is why some new providers are trying to show that and go to market to demonstrate that for people. But I think if you start with, this is what it costs us to do this, and I think I said to you when I met you before that in my first conversations with the provider of our PMI, I was telling what we're going to do, and they reduced our cost by 5%. So there's a direct, tangible cost I could show the CFO. This is just having a conversation. If we actually do that work, if we actually do the things I'm recommending, then you will see more savings. So they can understand that. That's money they can actually say, I can see what that is as a percentage of the overall cost.
Yeah. And when it comes to the decision-making process, in your experience of working in-house, is it often the CFO that has the ultimate decision, or is it CEO, or who's empowered to make those decisions in your experience?
Depends on the size of the business.
Yeah.
But and I work with multiple CFOs here. I worked with multiple CFOs in my last role. So I think it would be, you would go with the one that has the most influence over the others. That's generally what I do. The CPOs there are fewer of them. So that would be the one that you would perhaps deal with. But they understand. They should get it. You don't really need to persuade them. You need to come to them saying, this is affordable. I've got the money. It's sensible, isn't it? Let's do it. And that's where I tend to go to now. Yeah. I didn't when I was working with Thomsons. I wish I'd known that.
How is that different?
When I was at Thomsons, I would literally just do a return on investment document, but I didn't know that it was a CFO I should be pitching.
Right.
Because I hadn't worked internally. I hadn't seen the mechanics of how the business worked. So I just sold to the HR person. And we had lots and lots and lots of meeting with HR people who got it, understood it, loved it, and then would never speak to them again. Yeah. Because they didn't have the influence or the ability to say yes.
Is there anyone that you would or have sort of allied with internally to try and get the...
So I tend to always work with the right-hand person for the CFO, and I work very closely with the CPO. Yeah. So those are the two people I work with generally.
Yeah.
And I guess that's probably, that partnership is actually really important, right? And sometimes it is, again, as a provider sort of in the space, you don't know what the inner mechanics of what's happening, right? But I think a lot of people struggle with that, like from what we see. Yeah.
Well, I said before, benefits are not that important. I've always loved them. I've always been very much an advocate of benefits. Going into being a practitioner, I realised how unimportant they are to a business. So I've made them important. I've made them understand what they are. But that's because people don't get them, don't know what they do. They know they're a cost, and that's about all they do know.
I think that's a really key point, right? If you talk to any sort of CHROs, chief people officers, like, hey, where does benefits stack up in your list of priorities? And it's usually not at the top, right? Well, but it's the second highest people cost, right, to the company.
Use that line. I've used that line.
But it is true, right?
Yeah, it's true. Yeah.
Quite odd, isn't it?
Yeah. Speak to CEOs of benefit companies. They're not even that interested. Not our CEO, obviously.
Yeah. But do they understand? So again, going back to, do they understand the actual cost of the benefit? You're saying it's the second highest cost, but if they're only assuming a 20% on cost for it, do they actually know the cost of it? And more importantly, do they know the cost of not having it? Because that's an impact. I mean, we've got American offices. Other companies have American offices. The cost of medical insurance there is phenomenal because you have captive schemes, etc. It's a very important thing to have. But again, it's not the most important thing to the P&C or the HR world.
Yeah.
But it is
which is why sometimes it's overlooked, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. And why do you think it is then that so many companies just fail to acknowledge the value of benefits? And what's the Is it because people just put the value of remuneration on salary, and therefore the people just these benefit leaders just think, well, that's where the value is placed from our employees. Why would we care too much about the rest of it?
Well, that's the thing. If you don't understand what a benefit does, and I've been very lucky. I've worked as a financial advisor. I've worked for a provider. I've worked for a pension consultancy. I've worked at all aspects of it. So I've worked with a widow, and I've seen the benefit of death in service.
Sure.
I've worked with a widow who didn't have death in service, and I've seen what happens there. I worked with redundancies, retirements, so I can see the benefit of a benefit. If you haven't seen that or understand that, you just see it as a cost. You don't see it as something you need.
So I guess there's an element of storytelling to some of this as well, then, right? Because I think I would completely agree with that. I think one of the biggest reactions I ever got was when we did a governance, a stewardship report at the end of the year with a particular client, and we showed the CEO that I think there was 3 babies born that year as a result of the fertility plan that they put in place.
Okay.
That got more of a reaction than anything, any kind of we've saved 10% off your medical insurance or 15% off your life insurance. Or like I completely agree with the
I've just been thanked by somebody in the office. So she's a manager. I just reviewed all the benefits, put in the new PMI scheme.
Yeah.
She's just claimed on it. And she said, I would have had to wait 6 months to find out that what I thought I had, I haven't got.
Yeah.
And actually what I've got is quite simple to sort. So she goes, and I said, would you be happy to do that as a video on our website? And she said, yes, I would. So that real story is really important.
That's great, yeah.
So I guess moving exactly to that topic, right? So like there's communicating or trying to get to the business case for, the folks who are making the decision. And then the remarkable thing about benefits is actually trying to get employees themselves to engage with it, because sometimes it's not perceived as the most immediate thing, right? It's insurance, it's retirement, it's all long-term focused stuff. What have you seen in being successful sort of communicating to the team?
So employee groups, absolutely. I mean, focus groups, and they changed over time, but I worked from the shop floor upwards in every one I've ever dealt with as a consultant. And I've done that here now as well. So we had a benefit fair, and I'm going to be engaging a group after that to look at what we do next. But yeah, working with anybody on the shop floor, and they then tell people this is coming. Yeah. They get the buy-in. They tell them great things are coming. There's a benefit fair coming, all that sort of great stuff. Then you win. So that for me is around, and you don't run those, you facilitate them. And I start with 2 whiteboards. Could you write up the benefits, please?
As in just to the employees themselves.
Yeah, so 2 people will stand up and they'll start shouting out what they've got.
Nice.
And they go, have we got that? I didn't know we had that. And it's a really good education piece.
Yeah, it's cool.
And you do that in front of the whole company type of thing?
No, just with the focus group. So, but they then become your people you test everything with, who go out and talk to other people. And they go, did you know we had this? I didn't know we had that.
And what do you think about focus groups then? Because do you just take a cross section of the organisation? Because I've seen some companies do it quite successfully around actually singling out working groups. So like it might be the Pride Network, or it might be the Women at Work Network. How do you tend to think about focus groups?
So they didn't have those things when I started doing this. Sure. So yes, they become more the ones you engage with. It should be a group that's set up with the BPs, so the business partners, helping you. You don't want people that are vocal. You want people that are listened to. Huh. Yes, you want people that are involved in that, who are interested and want to get involved. That could be voluntary, or it could be the business partners saying, well, this person's really good for that reason or whatever reason. So I think the makeup's important, and we can say no to some people where we feel they're not adding value. I know I've worked with a lot of companies where they have their champions. They vote them every year. They nominate each other. I think it's a bit too much for me. I just think they don't need to. I just think it becomes its own thing. It goes separate to what you're trying to achieve in terms of the communication. It doesn't need to be that big. I just think a focus group once a year is enough. I don't think it needs to be too big.
We've also seen people sometimes they go rogue, right? And they do their own things, create their own groups. How do you feel about that?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not on the various communication links we have. I'd rather just have my teams. I don't want to be on Slack and everything else, because I don't want to have all that thrown at me. I'll hear about it and I'll deal with it as a VP. But if you get, I mean, I've worked at a company where I was looking at the Slack as we announced the change to pensions, and it can get very nasty. Not good.
And it's very emotive, right?
It is.
And again, it's a misunderstanding of what we were actually doing. So by working with the groups first, where you get them to understand, and they go to people, no, this is a good thing. Don't be upset by what they're doing. It's a positive thing for us as a business. It's a positive thing for you as an individual. They tell their colleagues, and they trust them. Whereas I'm a consultant, they're not going to trust me.
And what value do you place on sort of line managers being empowered with benefits knowledge to help guide employees in the right areas?
So we use them quite a lot in this benefit fair. So I was dragging them and speaking to them, bring your people into the meeting and make sure they come along, socialising it with them. One of the biggest parts, I think, of what we need to do next, and what you need to do with the business once you're in there, is make sure that the leaders are trained in understanding the reason for the benefit. So if somebody has to go for an MRI scan, or has to have a doctor's appointment, or needs to have an operation, give them the time to do that. Help them understand why that's positive, and what it does for them as a team and also as a business. So that's going to be the next part for us, is training the managers to understand what those benefits are for and what they'll use them for. We have a carer benefit, so helping support people who have caring needs in the UK. And I don't know whether you know the stat that there's more people looking after their parents than there is children.
It's often forgotten, right?
Yeah,
As
often
in,
forgotten,
Is it one in three people now have
Yeah.
caring responsibilities of some description?
There's so much
75%
focus on
female.
childcare, right? So much focus still on childcare, whereas it actually turns out, that's flipping. And companies are trying to do a lot for childcare, but they don't do a lot for other caring responsibilities.
And that's the same across Europe, because we've got an aging population where
Yeah.
people are not having children, or they leave it till later. So you've got more and more people caring for parents now rather than kids.
Yeah.
So we do that. We do support the administration and help and support required there. So again, why does that matter to the line manager? Well, their team members present. They're not going to be constantly thinking and worrying about their parent. They're not going to be leaving every 5 minutes because they need to. They're going to be okay.
Yeah.
And that's an interesting example of, again, sort of needs changing and sort of what you offer needing to evolve with it. The reality is, what I find is that it's kind of stayed the same, right? Like over the last, 10, 15 years, like benefits are still, pension plans, like health insurance, like has it evolved
It
that?
doesn't evolve to support
That's the
it,
thing,
does
right?
it? But neither does government policy evolve to support it. So you're kind of left in this limbo, aren't you? I mean, there are products that have come into the market. So what are you guys actually doing around elder care then? And
So we
the
use
support of
a Wealthy who do the administration support.
Okay.
I've seen others come out, like Apiary. They do
Yeah,
quite an
yeah.
interesting one. I think it's fair to say that the bigger businesses in the UK are too big to come up with new ideas. So they wait for them to come to market and then they buy them.
That's an unpopular
Pepe's a-
opinion. There you go.
Pepe's a prime example. Pepe comes out and then AXA buy them. It's just the way these things seem to work. They're not agile enough, and they're quite clunky
Big
with their old
businesses, you mean?
systems. Big businesses. The AXAs and the AVUs, etc. They find it quite hard to come out with innovative ideas. They either bring it in or they buy it. So
As a provider, I mean, what about as an employer, right? Because again, I find like a lot of people want to make that change, but they're a bit scared, or again, a lot of it starts with the experience of communicating it to employees, because they're, if you take something away, all hell is going to break loose.
I think you've got to connect things. So I can't, when I look at doing something, and you're saying about innovation, if I'm looking at a car scheme, a ULEV, I would also say to the CFO, look, can we use the beneficial loan limit to get solar panels for people, or to pay off their car so they can buy ULEV, to connect the things together, which will then hit our CSR targets and make us a caring employer. There's lots of stuff coming out soon we're going to need to report on how we behave as a business and what we do for our people. And that will affect our investors, and that will affect the customers. And those are very important things for CFO. So when you start talking about that, and if you care and show that we do stuff for the environment, not only does it bring people in and keep people, it also affects your investors and customers. They're like, oh, okay, maybe I'll set up and listen now.
I find that it's just, again, a sector that should be primed for innovation or for people trying to do different things, and yet like a lot of people just don't, and they end up revolting to the the benchmarking, or that everybody's got the similar stuff. And I feel there's a lot of challenges that companies are trying to unblock in order to make any change.
I think though, what you just said then about connecting it to business performance in other ways is
super important.
Super important, yeah. I mean, and there's probably lots of stats out there that back that up, right? I mean, I remember reading a PwC study years ago that said it was around contact centers, and like higher well-being in contact centers and customer satisfaction scores correlated, upwards together. It's quite interesting, actually. Like, I suppose that's a way of tying things back to broader business performance, right?
I think I was listening to a talk from my friend Gethin, who was saying that your glass doors scores go up if you engage people. Because people start to feel better about the company they work for and will comment more positively about them. So I think there's definitely a correlation between health and well-being of people. But I say the key thing for a business case is it affects your investors. It affects your customers.
Business performance.
People ask the question, how do you treat people? And it's going to become rules. I think it's reporting is coming at the end of next year, where globally you need to report what you do from a CSR point of view. And that includes how you care for your employees, not just about the environment.
It's interesting because I think everyone knows that healthy, happy employees are better employees. Don't they?
It's
But
really hard
it's
to
just quantifying
direct.
it, isn't it? Like, what does that actually mean?
Yeah.
What's the output of that? And I think that's an interesting. Yeah, it's really interesting.
Well, the boss asked me what I do. He said, if you were going to say, what do you do? And I did this in the talk. He said, what do you do for a living? I said, well, my job is to keep people happy, healthy, and at work. Mm-hmm. So if that's what you achieve in reward or in anything you're trying to offer a company, then I think that does it.
Going back to the topic of kind of communicating to people, like one of the things that you had shared with us is sort of your struggle with ADHD and sort of neurodiversity and things. What have you seen in order to kind of engage folks who are in a similar position?
So I have to be honest, I haven't yet done any communication plans linked to it. I've had people discuss it with me in terms of how you would advertise a job, how you would put things out there to engage people with the business. What I have seen, though, is the benefits helping people with ADHD. So I was diagnosed through the company, so I didn't even know I had it. I was commenting to me when I went through counselling about 5 years ago that maybe I did. So when it was added as a neurodiversity pathway, I took the opportunity to be diagnosed, and I got 9 out of 10. My partner said that's the first time I got 9 out of 10, but anyway. But yeah, so that for me was quite, and I had a little bit of AST as well. So it was interesting for me to learn that. And again, that's again about how the benefits help you. In my industry, in the gaming industry, we got a lot of people on the neurodiversity scale, and they could really benefit from this. And of course, it helps enormously in lots of other ways. I mean, I spoke to someone I met on a conference once about her son. She was struggling with him, and I explained to her how he was feeling, and that changed their relationship completely. She was then able to talk to him. He's now on the medication, and they have a relationship. But she had no idea how he was feeling, and that's it's hard to explain.
It's interesting. I have exactly the same situation with my son. So he's got ADHD and ASD, and it's just trying to understand how he operates and how he regulates himself. It's a very it's such a different dynamic to try and understand. Well, it's a different dynamic now. I understand that. And I guess bringing that into the workplace, I guess that's everything, right? In terms of like how you communicate with people, how they digest information, and obviously autism and ASD are just a small part of that massive spectrum of neurodiversity.
Absolutely, and I think it's those bite-sized chunks, and that's what you should do anyway. And also multimedia, communicating people in lots of different ways. When I'm communicating what we do, we tell them again, we repeat it, then we remind them. You just do it in different ways, but you keep on the message, because comms will tell you only to do it once. Yeah. And I know you need to keep on telling them, because one of those they'll pick up on, one of the others they'll ignore. The email that we did for the benefit fair had an 80% read through.
80%.
Yeah,
wow.
That's huge. Which is pretty incredible. But,
why?
Because of the way I formed it. From experience of working with employees, you keep things simple. You don't put any clicks in the email, because otherwise they're looking for the little hand. Mm-hmm. You do not put anything other than one sentence at the beginning. Everything else is maybe read, but the one sentence at the beginning has to hit home, has to be the thing they're going to read. And obviously the titling matters as well. So it was all about making that hit home. And I just came naturally to me because I've done it so many times, but that's not necessarily natural to a normal comms team.
It's one of the main things that, especially on the larger businesses, that we see them struggle with, and they try to hit them with everything, right? Like email after email after email, and benefit fair and stuff, but it still falls flat. I guess like any other tips on people who are struggling with that problem, or again struggling
Don't give them
with
more than 3 steps. So I've sat in a meeting with the director, and he had to do 7 steps to get his bike, and he only did 3 and wondered why he didn't get it. People cannot get beyond 3 steps. I don't know why. In America, you get, are you sure, are you sure, are you sure? In the UK, it's just the one, are you sure? And we're okay with that. But it's just really making sure. And I think it was red and green on the screen. If you had a red opt-out and a green opt-in, they would go with the green one, regardless of what they were choosing to do. So don't use colours. So there's things that I've learned over the time, just literally sitting watching people. When I looked after Heinz, I spent a lot of time in factories. Working with the blue-collar workers. We actually had a higher take-up in the factories than head office because I spent so much time there. But I just watched them. I watched them interact with the system I built, and I looked to see what they did. They never did what I expected them to do. Yeah. So I changed it and made it so that they could do it.
I mean, we see it the same thing, right? That we spend so much time and effort in doing UX tests and things like that, and be like, you can design what you think is the most beautiful experience, but then you look at people using it, and you're like, I didn't think you wouldn't get that, right? But they don't.
Indeed. It's surprising. It is surprising.
Obviously, you know how to address some of these issues, having ADHD yourself. If a practitioner, someone that's listening to this podcast, how would they know how to structure these communication strategies if they didn't have that lived experience?
I think again involve the employees. Ask them.
Okay.
We have people in the office who use Hoop. I don't know if you've come across these hoops that you put in your ear. So when we're having meetings, like the benefit fair, they put them in and they're blocking out the noise apart from the conversation you're having. Yeah. If you've got a mixture of autism and ADHD, you have a fight every day with yourself because you want to be stimulated, but you don't want to be stimulated. You want to meet people, but you don't. There's all that sort of stuff going on. So you spend a lot of effort controlling yourself. So you need to keep it very focused and very I suppose one-liners and bits of information. I'm not going to read a brochure, but if you tell me very briefly what that brochure says in a succinct way, I will listen to you.
I think a lot of times it's really counterintuitive, because what you want to do when people aren't listening is just overwhelm them with more information as opposed to distill and do it in different ways, bite-sized chunks, etc. So yeah, it's not intuitive.
So what I did on the intranet, and it's the first time I built a benefit site on the intranet, which is a fascinating experience for me, was tell me more about, and it was things like the online doctors, the healthcare professional, the private medical insurance, all the things that I knew we had, just not naming the benefits, but just tell me more about them. So they could see what we had in a block here, and then go down and find out more that they wanted. And then they could click to links that help them to join, help them to interact with it. So it just gave them nice, easy things to go to. But if they wanted to read the text, they could, but they didn't have to. There was very simple ways of finding out what they needed to find out.
And I think that's right? As in, like, for the people who want to go to the nth level of detail, they can, but the majority of people just don't, actually.
Yeah.
And so who are you designing for, I suppose? Cool. I guess, like, to wrap up the conversation, we like to finish off with the segment around, like, an unpopular opinion. I think we went there a little bit earlier. Maybe that's the one that you want to go with. But
so I think that's be REM, because I've obviously, this is the news the last 10 years learning about REM. I think I've done benefits for a while now, and I understand what's right and wrongs about them. But from a REM perspective, I think that we shouldn't do salary reviews every year. I think annual salary reviews are old hat, and they shouldn't be done. Pay progression should be based on the value of a role. So every year we do a range review. We look at what the value of that role is, and that changes the value in the center of the role, so the midpoint. If you're sitting at the midpoint, that means you get a pay rise, because your role value has gone up, your value has gone up. If you then are assessed against a development plan, so we've said, look, the competency and skills of this role are X, Y, Z.
Yeah.
You now move forward with those. Whatever those goals might be, and that could be for anybody from someone who works 24 hours a day to someone who can't. Their development goals are based on that. That's their second move. There is no merit review on that basis, because salary ranges are assessed against wage inflation, everything else. You don't need to.
But don't you have to review the ranges on a yearly basis?
Yeah, so you review the ranges, but you shift people twice. Reviewing a range is much simpler than going through an annual salary review. And what happens at the end of a salary review? People go, thanks.
Yeah,
True.
It's a lot of effort for a business to do a salary review. It's 3-4 months worth of work.
Yeah.
Most people just go, thanks very much. Whereas if you say, look,
or
your role value's gone up, David. We know that your role is important in the market. It's gone up as a role. We're going to pay you what you're worth. We're not going to bring somebody else in and pay them more. We're going to pay you what you're worth. I think that means more to somebody.
Yeah.
I would agree.
You heard it here first. No more salary reviews.
I'm working on it.
Amazing. Totally. Thanks so much. It was a great conversation.
Thank you. Enjoyed it.
Great. So thanks everyone for listening. That's concluded another episode. Please go on to Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and YouTube, and don't forget to subscribe.